YouTube. And
okay, good evening, everyone. We'll give it a moment here to allow everyone to enter the meeting.
And you're live on YouTube now. Yeah, I need about 45 seconds for us to catch up.
And we do have Mariana.
Yes, I'm here.
I'll introduce you at the beginning.
Thank you, guys.
She had a preference to ask that everyone please, I know you're trying to get as much in your minutes that you're speaking, but she is struggling on the other end to translate everything for our Spanish-speaking families.
All right, I think I don't see anyone else coming in at this moment. So, oh, here we picked up again, a couple more. Well, let's go ahead and get started this evening. We're reconvening from closed session into open session, and we will start as usual with our Pledge of Allegiance. And if everyone, if you have a flag, please go ahead and look at your flag. Otherwise, please look to the right and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I do apologize. Earlier, we stated that we were not going to have a public comment this evening on items not on the open session agenda. Generally, with special meetings, we do not, but it is on our agenda this evening. So we will take public comment from the public on items that are not on the open session agenda. Well, I forgot to approve the agenda. All right, let me back up a step. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I move that we approve the agenda.
All right, thank you, Angie. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
All right. Yeah.
Yep.
You have two, Karen. All right. We'll go ahead and vote. Jolie.
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Angie.
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez.
Aye.
And Kelly Noe. Aye. And
We have our two
Satori.
students too.
Yep,
Yeah.
Satori.
Aye.
And Jeannie Broom.
Aye.
And then I also want to take a moment to introduce Mariana, who can give our announcement for our Spanish speakers this evening. Did she already? I think she already left and went into the room. All right, well, we will move on to public comment. So we will give public the opportunity to comment on items not on the open session agenda this evening. Okay, I do not see any hands raised. Okay, we have 1, 2. All right, people are raising their hands.
Three.
Okay, and these
4.
I'll give it one more moment. Okay, so we have 5 speakers this evening. How much time would we like to give the speakers for? Is that a 2, Jeannie? Is the rest of the board comfortable with 2 minutes? Okay, let's go ahead and bring them into the room. And again, these are items not on the open session agenda. So if this is regarding the rebranding topic, you will have an opportunity to speak on that topic during the actual agenda item.
Our first speaker is M. Michalowski. Then it's Tara Del Drago, Steve Sumner, and Araya Emmerich. Wait, hold on. Sorry. It's letting, for some reason, Mr. Malowski or Mrs. Malowski, I have to promote you to a panelist. It's not letting me do anything else. So you'll be joining us here in a second. And you have the floor when you're ready. We're having a hard time hearing you. I'm sorry, you have a ton of feedback happening. It's not a good connection.
Maybe they can email us the comments. We can't hear it.
What about turning off her video?
Her video is off. There she is. All right, so I'm asking you to unmute again. Go ahead and try that.
I'll turn off my video. That's fine. At an early board meeting, you were asked how much you were paid, and the answer was we don't get paid. Just our health insurance is paid for. So that is not an answer. How much every month is paid by this district for your health insurance? I would like to know that.
And I'm going to. Hold on. Our next speaker is Tara Del Drago.
Hi, thank you. Tara here. Since this isn't an item on the agenda, I would also again like you guys to consider holding off the consolidation and giving it that time, listening to the feedback that's happening, paying attention to the hundreds of thousands of people that are involved in this now and are stepping up to help fight for all the kids involved. It's actually been really nice having the Annalee and Laguna and El Molino families come together for a common goal and a common cause, which is all of our kids, to keep all of our schools. So we urge you, ask you, beg you for the kids and for the towns. You guys have been asked this before too. Forestville is a small town. We do not even have a stoplight. The detrimental damage this would do to our town, closing our school, is ginormous. There are businesses that depend on that business, the foot traffic, the siblings. Forestville School will suffer for that. Why would you send kids to an elementary school in a town where there's a high school, yet you can't send your high schoolers there as well as your students? We have hundreds of people that purely came here for that, specifically to grow their families together in the same town with the kids going to the same place. It's been brought up many times with the commute, the amount of time. Guarantee nobody has yet taken me up on my challenge to drive from Fort Ross, Jenner, or anywhere to Annalee. It's a 15-minute at the most walk for those kids in that town to get to a school. I'm sorry, it's a 15-minute drive from Sebastopol to Forestville at the most. It is going to take hours, insurmountable amounts of time and effort on parents and kids, and the stress of that to get to Annalee. It is absolutely unnecessary. Please consider to hold off on consolidation and keep our schools open.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker is Steve Sumner. Steve, you with us? There you are.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. And that's partly what I want to address here. I believe this is the 17th, maybe the 18th special board meeting since July. And for me tonight, I'm trying to get my grades in. So it's difficult to attend when things are announced last minute. I know it's legal and all that, but the pattern has become one that's become difficult. Plus, the kids don't have much say because they're playing sports. They still have practice. They're on the field right now. And so I would like to hear the students be able to be heard more often. Secondly, I'm teaching hybrid in the classroom, and I'm really enjoying seeing my kids. It's fantastic. It's wonderful to see them and be there. But I would like to suggest to the board that you could have live meetings. I'm in a classroom, regular classroom. I have 16 kids. Actually, I've allowed for more because I'm teaching seniors and I want them to be together. So I could see, in a large library that you could have your meeting and also maybe a few people and also on Zoom. The reason I say that is I really feel strongly that if you as a board were able to look at each other in the eye during a meeting instead of on Zoom, it would make a big difference, just as it has in my classroom. My attention, the connection I have with my students is a lot different. I think it's easy to get used to Zoom and communicating this way. So I would just like to suggest that it's possible and encourage you to start meeting live. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Arat Emirat.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi there. I wanted to talk on briefly about from what I understand, your current MOU as far as it being still at 6 feet. And I understand that now the state guidelines are at 3 feet for students. I appreciate everything you guys have done up until this point to get the kids back in the classroom. But my hope is that we can potentially do more than what we're doing right now. And it makes me nervous what's going to happen in the fall if this consolidation does come through and all these children are together, and how that will look if it's 6 feet, how would these children be in class, if this would be still like a hybrid situation. And I'm really looking, wanting full time for my student. The other thing I was wondering was what someone mentioned earlier, which was if you were offering any type of summer school program for makeup of learning for the kids. From what I understand, there's been some money that's been allocated from the states and government for this. And so I was just curious to know if you guys were doing anything like that for the children. So that's basically my two things I wanted to bring up. And that's it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. We did get one additional speaker hand. How would you like me to handle that, Kelly?
What's the board's preference? Would we like to take the additional speaker or move on to our next item?
Well, I think we had a couple of hands that dropped, so maybe that's okay. It's okay with me. I don't know what other people think.
Fine with me.
Okay. Our last speaker here is going to be Erin. I'm not even going to try to butcher your last name. Erin, you have the floor.
Hi, thank you, and I appreciate that. My name's Erin Lagore. I'm actually a board member at Oak Grove Union School District, so thank you for having me. I'd like to echo Steve's comments. We've been meeting as a board in person since beginning of March. I find it extremely helpful. Obviously, with 6 feet, distancing and temperature taking and all those things. My children are going to Oak Grove, then they'll be going to Williside, and then they would be going to either Annalee or Elmo. So I have a vested interest in this. I'm curious what you're doing with ELO funds, which was also earmarked as learning loss funds, and I look forward to hearing your discussion. But as a fellow board member in a different school district, I would really encourage you to try to meet in person to the greatest of your capacity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And bringing it back to the board.
All right, now we will move on to our closed session report. Angie?
Sorry, I was scrolling through the agenda. We have nothing to report out. There's no action taken.
Thank you. All right, now we can move on to our discussion and action items this evening, which is discussion and possible action on timeline for rebranding of the consolidated high school on the Annalee and Laguna campus. And so we do have this as a discussion and a possible action Generally, our protocol before we move into the staff report is to have a motion on the floor. So this is a potential item. Is there any board member that would like to entertain putting a motion on the floor before we move into the staff report on this item? All right, we have no motion at this time. We will hand it over to Tony.
Okay, so this item is in regards to the timeline for rebranding. At your March 16th board meeting, the board voted to move forward with rebranding of the consolidated high school on the Annalee and Laguna campuses for the 21-22 school year. Since that meeting, several things have happened in the district. One of which was that we have a pending lawsuit. We also have confirmation that the California Voting Rights Act, the CVRA, is moving forward and will be implemented before the November 2022 board meeting. So there'll be associated costs that happen with the CVRA. And in addition, there's a possibility of a recall election that could happen in the beginning of next year. And there could be substantial costs that would happen with a recall election that the district would have to pay for. So given those new circumstances in the district, there had been a request to bring this item forward and have the board consider a possible postponement of the rebranding. Since the meeting where the board approved the rebranding for the 21-22 school year, there has been a student design team that has been meeting, focused on developing proposals for a new mascot name and colors. And I want to read to you an update from that committee. I'm just going to read exactly what they have sent to me tonight for the update. So it says, Dear West Sonoma County Union High School District Board and Community, I'm writing today to provide an update on the process and progress made by our design team. The team includes 16 randomly selected student consultants, 2 students from each grade level at each site. Mike Rohn, leadership team and athletic director, leadership teacher and athletic director. Aaron Elliott, vice principal and former leadership teacher. Jolene Johnson, dance and ethnic studies teacher and equity student engagement teacher. Claudia Camacho, bilingual counselor with experience at both sites. Anita Sanguina, ceramics teacher and restorative practices leader. And Nicole Wilkinson, social science teacher on loan to SCO and our work-based learning coach. Since April 14th, the design team has met every Wednesday morning from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m., alternating between sites and utilizing Zoom. Student consultants carefully reviewed the SurveyMonkey data submitted by the students, the staff, and the community. Student consultants have reflected on the major themes present in the data, and they've actively listened to the perspective of their peers. Using a restorative practices working circle model, the students have determined 2 mascot options that feel genuinely exciting and authentic to the West County student. This morning at El Molino, our partners at Varsity Brands zoomed in to share their initial mascot sketches. Students gave live feedback and made significant design requests for next week. In addition to seeing sketches for the first time, we began discussing 2 school color options. During a time of unprecedented change, our student consultants have embodied empathy, resilience, and balance. I'm incredibly proud of their commitment to doing what is best for current and future students. And I'd like to extend an open invitation to our Wednesday morning design team meetings to each of the board members. So you're welcome to attend those meetings. And this is submitted by Nicole Ochoa Wilkinson. And Nicole is, she was a teacher at the West County Charter. She's currently a social science teacher, but she's on loan to SCO as a work-based learning coach. She actually just recently got married to an alum. She's an alumni of Annalee, and she's married to an Annalee alum. And her father is an Elmo alum, and her mother is actually an Annalee alum. So lots of history there with Nicole. So that's where the design team is right now. In terms of their planned forward progress, the plan for them is that today they, as we said, they met and they talked about different scenarios, design scenarios with the design team from Varsity Brands. Next Wednesday, they were planning to meet and review the mascot mock-ups with various color options. And then on the 19th, they were going to talk about possible names and then initiate a survey. And a survey was going to go out to all stakeholders, students, staff, and community. And they were going to select the two top mascot color and name options, and stakeholders would vote on those options. And then their plan was to come to the board on the last board meeting in May in order to present their findings and their process to the board. So that was the plan that the design team was planning to follow. And that's the progress that they have made thus far. So given that, and because that was the plan of how we were moving forward, given that we were planning to have all of those decisions made in order to have uniforms and be prepared for students to come onto campus. The question at this point is, given the financial situation of the board, is that something that we want to consider postponing or pausing until we have better information about our fiscal status? Or do we want to continue with this process? There is one other piece of information that I do wanted to add. Today, we did receive a letter from Sonoma County Office of Education Business Services Department that they are requiring our district to submit a third interim budget. This is not a usual practice with districts. Districts usually do not have to submit a third interim budget, but we are being asked to submit a third interim budget. They have some concerns about the budget, and they want some evidence that we are on track to follow through with our fiscal recovery plan and be able to meet our financial obligations moving forward. So I don't know if there were any questions from the board about where we are or what the options are.
I think, well, so before we turn it over to public comment, I know, again, this is a potential action item. So before we turn it to the public, I will turn it to the board once again to give an opportunity for if anyone wants to entertain a motion on the floor. Okay, Julie?
I have a question. Julie?
Do you want to take clarifying questions now, Tony, or after public comment? Are you okay? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lori. Yeah, it's a question. Yeah, not a comment. We'll do our comments after the public comment, but if you have a clarifying question.
Maybe I'll hold mine off until after public comment because it's probably more of a statement combined with a question. So
okay.
I'll wait.
Julie, you had your hand up.
Yeah, my concern with the rebranding is to, first of all, I think that it needs to be done
Julie, we're
correctly and completely.
Sorry, excuse me, Julie, I don't want to cut you off, but is this a question? Because if it's a comment, I want to save it till after public comment.
No, I was going to make a motion.
Okay.
I was going to make a motion.
Okay, all right.
Is that okay?
Yes, you can make a motion. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm just trying to, I'm explaining why I'm making a motion.
Okay.
And I just am concerned about fiscal stuff. So I'd like to make a motion that we postpone the rebranding until we see how we're doing financially.
Okay. So we have a motion. Would anyone like to make a second? So the motion, as I understand it, is postponing the rebranding until we have a better understanding of our financial state.
Is there a timeline given on that?
Do you want to add a specific timeline, Jolie, or you want to? Do you want to amend your motion to give a timeline, or are you what?
Well, the way the financial situation works, it's hard to put a timeline because, you know, you never know each year what, you know, when you're going to get your money and how that's going to look. But I think that we have to look at our finances and just make sure that it can be done correctly and in the best interest of the kids with their participation. So, but I think it's hard to put a timeline when, you know, our budget is so volatile.
Tony, didn't Jeff allocate funds for this? And the only cost we have is for uniforms, correct?
Correct. So I feel like we have a motion. I want to follow kind of our protocols. So if we're going to add, we have a motion on the floor, which is, and Jolie didn't amend it. She has a motion, which is postponing the rebranding until we have a better understanding of the fiscal situation of the district. Is there a second on that motion? Jeannie?
I will go ahead and second that motion so that we can hear from the public and then have a discussion on it later.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Now I'm going to turn it over to the public for public comment. And if you want to make public comment, please raise your hand. I will give it a few moments here for people to populate if they would like to speak. If you do feel like you even remotely might like to speak, please raise your hand. We do use the raise your hand feature like we would use comment cards if we were meeting in person. So please go ahead and raise your hand, and then we will move people into the room to make public comment.
So right now you have 8, 9, 10.
Let's just give it a minute. Yeah, we can sit with it. All right, let's, we got one more. All right, so we will end with Rob Best, and we have 11 speakers. So from the board, how much time do we want to give each speaker? Do we want to go?
It's a minute and a half, okay with everybody?
Minute and a half. Is everyone nodding yes? Okay. All right, let's go ahead and bring them into the room.
All right, our first 5 speakers in order. Just friendly reminder, don't unmute yourself until you're called upon, because you move around on my screen. First speaker, Gillian Hayes, then Jamie Parisian, Eleanor Gorman, Patrick Nagel, and Leah Woody. Gillian, you have the floor.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm in Cardinal Newman Gym watching my daughter's volleyball game, trying to make the meeting that you set with only 24 hours notice. So pretty difficult trying to balance all this, but this is so important for our kids. 19 days to choose mascots and colors and a name is way too short. After only 2 meetings, 2 mascots were chosen without full school, both campuses input, just this small committee. And as you heard Tony's report, it came from an Annalee teacher. Again, my daughter sent you all an email. She's part of this rebranding committee. She is hurt. This is painful. This is too rushed. And this is way too quick for a thoughtful, inclusive process. You need to include us. You don't put the Annalee project pottery teacher heading this whole thing up and facilitating. You don't put the Annalee teacher reporting out. Yeah, you stated Elmo teachers are present, but where is the inclusivity here? Where is that balance? The public was told when you talked about rebranding that funding for varsity was out of the facility's bond money. Now you're saying a lawsuit takes the money away? How's that? I disagree. Get a third-party auditor to review your darn budget. Everyone has concerns, including Stowe. Goodness. Give a timeline to reconsider branding. Take it up next month when you have a better handle on your budget. This isn't what you promised our kids to put it out with no timeline. You didn't tell them they had to close their school and move to Annalee. You said they could rebrand. Postpone this conversation till June. Revisit after our legal settlement conference takes place. Hopefully in that legal settlement conference, we can come to an agreement to move forward without hurting our children. Please be smart and listen to us. If my daughter was here, she would be telling you the same thing, but she's on the court. She was in tears when she wrote you that email. This isn't easy for all the kids and the whole rebranding committee, and you need to know it and recognize it.
Thank you. Next speaker is Jamie Parisian. You have the floor.
Hello, West County School Board. My name is Jamie Parisian. I'm a freshman at Emelino High School. I try to get involved as much as I can with my school. I play volleyball, help out with fundraisers, I go to rallies, I ran for freshman class president, and I'm also a part of my school's FFA program. With how much me and my fellow peers try to be involved with our school, I feel like we have not been involved with this decision. The decision for our future is just being made by the school board without hearing our input or how we feel. I would like you guys to take a minute and think about how many students from my school you've reached out to and see how they felt. You probably didn't have to think about it for that long because I know it hasn't been many. This is bad on your part because you aren't seeing or hearing how this is affecting me and my fellow peers. It's not easy on anyone, especially because things are just starting to get back to normal because of COVID. And you guys are just throwing another unexpected change at us. I feel that you aren't thinking about the big effect it will have on my community. If you take away the high school, it's going to affect the number of students that will attend Forestville School. When that happens, it will affect all the small businesses in Forestville, for example, Cars, Tiny Town, La Rosas, because they get a majority of their income from students going there after school. I bet you didn't think about that because the school board has been so selfish and only cares about money. Also, the fact that you guys are complaining about having to rebrand, but we're losing everything, not just our school, but our community that's like a family. I would also like to address the problem I've experienced with some Annalee students. I went to a rally in downtown Sebastopol. I was spit at, yelled at, got flipped off, cussed at, and was recorded when I was just riding in my car at the rally. I've been told that us Elmo kids are not welcomed. There is already a rivalry between the two schools, and you think it's a good idea to combine them? Well, it's not. The animosity that has been created isn't good. I would really appreciate it if you guys took some time to revote and think about how it's affecting all the students, the Forestville community, and the Sebastopol community. Revote to stop the consolidation of the beloved Emelino High School. Emelino is a warm and welcome school that cares about all of their students and doesn't deserve to go. Be smart, listen to our voices, think about others, and make the right decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jamie. Next speaker is Eleanor Gorman.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Okay, I'm just going to get right to the point. Rebranding and consolidation go hand in hand. If you consolidate and you don't rebrand, it is going to feel like it's retribution against Emelino because of these lawsuits. These are the students that you're impacting. If you don't have the money to rebrand, you don't have the money to consolidate. I'm sorry, that's on principle. I don't care about lawsuits. I don't care about whatever. On principle, if you consolidate and don't rebrand, you are creating a disparate impact on the Emelino community going to Annalee, and I don't think that's arguable. I don't think you can argue against that. So based on just principle, consolidation and rebranding go hand in hand. You do one without the other, that is super suspect. And frankly, it sounds like a threat to me. And you're talking about the students here. So, conduct your budget business aside, but don't consolidate and then ruin the opportunity for El Molino students to have a fair shot at this being a good experience for them. My goodness, people. And if you want to talk about empathy, empathy is not doing this to our community during a pandemic. Oh my, you just have no idea how crazy this is. Graduating students, kids playing 2 sports, some at school, some not. Kids going kids scattering to different schools next year. It's crazy. So please consider it. Rebranding and consolidation go hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Patrick.
Good evening. I just want to take a second and try to look at logic and take some emotions out of this. The reason for consolidation was based strictly on budget and strictly on declining enrollment. The board, you passed a resolution to intend to rebrand, but unfortunately things have changed. We've experienced additional costs that impact the money that we have to spend. And unfortunately, a lawsuit was filed, which requires the district to spend money to defend it. We don't have, if you sat, and I was on the budget committee, if you sat through any of the budget presentations or on budget committee, we don't have a war chest of funds to defend against lawsuits. Redistricting, I believe is what Tony said, was happening, and the potential to cover a very expensive potential recall election. All of those things are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars of cost. And if you paid attention, the reason for consolidation was we needed to save about $1 million to from the budget in 2022. So my point is because of the situation we find ourselves in, pausing rebranding and not invoking any money into that right now is the prudent thing to do. This is something that the board is entrusted with in saving our money. We don't know what a judge is going to say. We think the district is in the right, but until a judge rules, it would be wise not to spend any money, because what if we invested that money and then we were told we had to undo it, unring the bell, and that would be wasted money of what we don't have. So we would consolidate and then also have to cut programs and cut sports and cut things to pay for all the things instead of taking a pause, letting the lawsuit play itself out, and then make a decision based on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Leah Woody, but then after that, it's Julie McLeland, Dominic Piazza, Tara Del Drago, Adam Parks, Janelle Rovatini, followed by Rob Best. So Leah, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just returning from the soccer game. I just want to thank Jamie Parisian for speaking, and Eleanor. Based on principle, it's just unconscionable to go forward with a consolidation without rebranding for our students. The idea that our students from El Molino would be stepping onto the campus without rebranding is just horrifying to me. I also wanted to take the opportunity to talk about summer school and bring this to the attention of the board. I've spoken and reached out to Sonoma County College and Career advisors, coordinators, counselors. I'm hoping that the board will please consider having a college and career counselor for summer schooling. Last year during COVID.
I'm sorry, again, you can only comment on rebranding at this time. So
okay, so I'll talk about rebranding then.
Thank you.
Again, as Eleanor spoke to, the idea that we would ask our students to go onto campus without having a rebranding, and that Tony suggests that the only way that rebranding can happen and fighting against the lawsuit would come out of rebranding is just unconscionable to me. So please, board, they can't happen. If they both can't happen, then consolidation should not happen. Otherwise, it's just an absorption. Thank
you. Next speaker is Julie.
Hi, it's Julie McClelland. I'm going to sound like the same thing, but I agree. It seemed to me that when the rebranding was voted on, that the process, we were going to use the certain company to, I think it's called Varsity Sports or something, was going to pay for all of that. So I'm a little bit concerned what the costs are that we're needing to hold off for. I guess I'm assuming that we would start buying uniforms and that's what we want to hold off on. I guess that's my question, because it sounded as if they were going to absorb the costs if we bought all our uniforms from them. I do know that they're one of the more expensive companies for uniforms, so I guess I'm a little bit dismayed that that's also part of the cost of doing business. But yeah, we can't, it's not going to be fair. It's not equitable to have no consolidation. Following up on what the student said and the other parent, I know that there's the committee looking at these things, but there needs to be more input. The input that was asked for was super broad without any guidelines. And then the students have been working with staff members and the varsity sports people to kind of wade through that information. I feel like there needs to be one more chance for public comment. So I don't know if that's part of the process, but it needs to be, there needs to be buy-in. You know, part of the CD, the California Department of Ed guidelines for doing this process is you have to have buy-in from the entire community. We don't have buy-in from the entire community. That's the best practice. Why wouldn't we want best practice? So let's get buy-in. I agree with the person that said maybe this gets put off for a month until things get looked at like Gillian said. And let's just move forward in a thoughtful way. Thank you.
Next speaker is Dominic.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Dominic Piazza. I just wanted to say that we're trying to work with you, but the three of you who voted to consolidate, including also Superintendent Beal, are absolutely unapologetically sinister. To blame the suspension of rebranding on our legal challenge in an effort to slight us and impact the recall effort is disgusting. And to threaten to take away booster funding for student events in an attempt to intimidate us and make us look bad is totally reprehensible and unscrupulous. You're so high and mighty about what's good for the students, but it's never about the students for you. I've said it once and I'll say it again. We see right through you. The three of you should be ashamed. What an incredible example you're setting for our students about small community governance. Not only do you make it look unrepresentative and unresponsive, but nefarious too. President Noe, Vice President Fernandez, Trustee Fadave, either listen to us and work with us or step down before this gets even uglier. You're acting like children. And stop playing the victim. If you can't handle the heat, you need to find another job. Revote on consolidation, slow the process down, and rebrand the right way. Frankly, I find it even more offensive to learn that you're not getting paid and you're still screwing over our community. At least if you were getting paid, I could understand your motivations. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Adam Parks.
Good evening, Trustee Aiello, Trustee Fernandez. Thank you for making a motion. You know, it's interesting to me that a lot of the commentary tonight has been about shock that the board would be considering not spending money on rebranding in face of all the costs that the people commenting are responsible for. Actions have consequences. It's not a threat. It's not blackmailing. It's not any of that. It is real dollars. And we got here because this district does not have real dollars to spend. And so it's super frustrating. I have never been against rebranding. Way back a year plus ago, when this first started to become a topic, I talked about West County High, and I talked about how cool that could be. So I'm not against rebranding per se. I'm against spending money on anything that does not go to programs and that does not go to the kids. Lawsuits don't go to the programs, don't go to the kids. Recalls don't go to the programs, don't go to the kids. Redistricting costs don't go to the programs, don't go to the kids. That has and is and will always be my entire focus. I know I've been vilified because I'm Annalee guy and I speak up against the people from El Molino. I don't speak up against the people from El Molino ever. What I speak for is for the kids and for programs. I've heard it commented before that, you know, closing a school or closing El Molino or consolidating is going to cost programs. It's not. It will drastically improve the programs your kids have to go to school to attend. It will improve the sports that they get to play. It'll just be under one umbrella. That's all. And it'll be better for the kids, which is why we're supposed to be here. So thanks to the two of you for bringing this up. I hope the board votes to pause consolidation until we figure out how much
Thank
money.
you, Adam. Next speaker is Tara Del Drago.
Hi, thank you. Adam's last comment there was to pause consolidation. Thank you, Adam. I agree with that completely. So it absolutely must be a buy-in from the communities because we're not all on the same page, and I'm sorry, but these costs wouldn't be an issue if everybody was doing the right thing and it was for the kids. Thank you, Jamie, for being so brave. My twin daughters, who would be going into 9th grade this coming school year, already spoke their hearts out. This is killing all the 8th graders. Again, you as a district have not included any 8th graders or 8th grade parents in any process of this. I've asked multiple times, why wouldn't you include them or us in any part of these processes when these are kids going to your school? We do not want a super school. We want our small school. That is why we are here. That is why we moved here. We want small classes where these kids get the most beneficial time and not shoved in these huge classes where they shouldn't even be in now with the pandemic. I've asked Jeff, who is no longer here, so cannot answer still, multiple times to explain line items. All this money coming in, so your third interim budget should actually look better than it has all year because of all the money coming in. It is not just COVID costs. It is money that is there that you can put, and it is put. It's there. So it's for all kids, all programs. They all matter. Put your egos aside and take care of all the kids.
Thank you. Next speaker is Janelle, then followed by our last speaker, Rob.
Hi, this is Janelle. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, sorry, I just got home, just got here in time to raise my hand. I don't have anything prepared. I want to thank you for calling this meeting. And oh goodness, I would like to thank you for taking the time to think about postponing this. This is a huge thing for all of our students, our Annalee students, our El Molino students. It's going to impact everybody. There are some unknowns right now that they're not really unknowns. We all know about the lawsuit and about the potential recall. So I think definitely rebranding is something that does need to be put on the back burner for a bit. That's not saying I absolutely want the El Molino students to be comfortable if and when they do join the Annalee campus. But there's too much going on right now. I think one thing at a time needs to be focused upon. And I truly wish that you do decide to put a hold on rebranding for the moment and just focus on the kids. Like Adam said, that is all of our priorities. We care about our kids. I have a daughter at Annalee, and she was watching this and she was too afraid and left the room. She was tired of hearing people yell at everybody. So probably won't take up my whole time. That's really all I have to say. Thank you for listening to us. It seems like you're starting to hear us a little bit more. This is just so divisive, and it hurts a lot of us. So thank you for hearing what we had to say tonight.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Rob Best.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. This is Heather Dale Best. I can't believe that the board would delay a rebrand and not delay a consolidation. The majority of you have already created a huge divide in our beautiful, special Western Sonoma County region. The rivalry between our groups was healthy. It was mostly about football and good West County pride. Now it's just a divide and our kids are just suffering. It's no longer a consolidation. Now it is a straight up absorption, which is exactly what you said and promised that you would not do to our kids. For the record, I never thought you'd honor your word. I never thought you'd not rebrand. I never thought you would rebrand so that the Elmo kids would feel welcome and included. But now they're just going to be absorbed and lose everything. And of course, our 64% of taxes gets to pay for the refurb of your campus. So now you have a community rising up with a lawsuit filing because we have to, you guys, we have to fight for our kids. It's all we can do. And now you get to blame us for the lack of rebrand. Most of you are not listening. And, you know, we also know that the Annalee alum is going to pull their annual donations if you change the name. So now that's fixed as well. Please do the right thing. Please consider holding off on this consolidation and representing your entire community of kids that go all the way to the coast. We don't want a super school. We chose El Molino High School, those of us who chose it, for a purpose. Annalee High School is an amazing high school, as is El Molino. 2 different communities, 2 different cultures, a good solid rivalry. It is one whole community, and it's being ruined by the majority of this board. You should please, begging you to listen to us. I represent so many people who have this. We've planned for years for our future so our kids can have what they have right now, and it's just being demolished. Please consider our pleas. We're begging you at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. And bringing it back to the board.
I will bring it back to the board and open it up for board discussion. Any comments from the board?
I have a couple of questions. I'm just trying to, Tony, I don't know, my husband's coaching a game right now, so I don't know the turn time on, you know, like, or an estimated time on how long it takes to order uniforms. Like if we were to postpone because people want more input or whatever the reasoning, what kind of timeline are we looking at? And can we set that deadline tonight as far as when we revisit and, you know, we take a better look at the budget? Or
yes. Varsity Brand said they'll work with us no matter what our timeline is. And knowing that if we tell them on, you know, August 1st that we want uniforms, it's going to be really difficult for them to get for the football team. So
I know that somebody had brought up the idea of using both schools' uniforms for home and away and alternating. Is that something that we can do under CIF or NCAA?
It is. We could use both schools' uniforms for the first year.
Okay.
Possible.
Would they force us to like rename the school too? Or like what are the guidelines? Do they have strict guidelines on how that works?
They do. I have a phone call into the league, the officials league, the officials group for the league, to find out exactly what the regulations are on altering uniforms. There's some code about unaltered uniforms, so I haven't yet found out the answer to what could actually be done to the current uniforms to make them work.
Go ahead. Yeah. Is there, like, if we were to just, I don't want to call it a place called card holder, but if we were to come up with some sort of, I don't know, idea to give the ample time that people want to, I know there's been talk of, you know, with the grants and the new school models and the portrait, you know, all these things that we're creating, the student pathways. I thought it was kind of a cool idea to wait and kind of think out, see how the cards land and use that as kind of our guidance on, you know, who, like, kind of really figuring out who we are.
Right.
We do this process. You know, I feel Eleanor Gorman deeply because I don't want this consolidation to turn into this absorption or thing that these kids are fearing because they are the minority.
Right.
So I think taking care of the kids, and I think it was Shauna Ferdinandson who had said, you know, to her, making sure each kid has that care when they need it, especially the kids, you know, the equity piece of that is we have a moral obligation to these kids.
Hey, Julie?
I agree with a lot of what Angie said. I think that postponing the rebranding is good for several reasons. One is I really want to see it done well, and I want to make sure that the kids get to participate and tell us what they need. It might not be what the adults think they need in order to do well and make the school feel like it's their own. I would just like to wait and hear what the kids have to say. And I think it's the fiscally responsible thing to do. And I don't want to see us do it in a way that will turn out to be a disaster, like with, fake new signs up at the school that can be torn down and all that stuff I envision happening. If we're going to rebrand, when we're going to rebrand, I want it to be in the best interest of the kids, and I want it to be done very well with lots of input, and that the students can feel really good about and be part of. And that's why I would like to see us hold off and take a little time.
Lori?
I'd like to add my voice to that as well. I'd also like to thank the students who've been working on this so hard going forward. And hats off to them for what they've tried to accomplish in such a short period of time. I think that we should listen to what they've come up with and, delay the rebranding, but at least not, negate any of the work that they've done, because they've really put a lot of thought into this, and they should be commended and respected for that and listened to.
Jeannie?
I really appreciate what Angie said. I sort of like your idea, Angie, about combining this with our new school model and including the portrait of a graduate piece into that, so that we actually are making decisions based on those things that are important to us and important to our students and our schools. I also really appreciate what Lori just said. I think it's so vital that we allow the kids that have done this work to continue their work and to be able to report out to us what they've done, and not just kind of toss them aside. And again, agreeing with Julie, I really like the thought of getting a survey out to the students with regards to what their needs are and how they feel. And because don't get me wrong, a group of 16 kids is a pretty good group to be able to work together. But we're talking about 1,580 some odd kids that need some sort of a say in this, and be able to offer some input. And I think we owe that to them, because again, we need to do what's best for kids. That's why we sit in these seats. So thank you guys for your really thoughtful comments. I did want to ask one clarifying question, and because we haven't discussed at all the conversation about the rebranding of Laguna. And I don't know, is that a part of this mix as well? That we're going to postpone that, or are we going to let that move forward because that's what they need and want?
Yeah, I think that they've decided that they're going to take some more time, kind of similar to what I think you guys are talking about in terms of the consolidated school. They've talked about taking a little more time to make some decisions about their what that might be, what their rebranding might be.
Can we hear from Jeannie and Satori, since we have two students here?
Well, I'm not going to be here next year, so my perspective is perhaps a little less valuable than Satori. But I was just wondering, so the money to rebrand, aside from the uniforms, is that all coming from the facilities? And then the money to deal with expected litigation, where would that be coming from?
It's an interesting question that you ask, in because this is an active case right now. We can't answer questions related to the lawsuit. I can tell you that the money for rebranding actually was figured into the cost savings for consolidation. So the original cost savings for consolidation was estimated to be 1.4 million, and then the amount for consolidation was adjusted to 1.2 million. And that change from 1.4 to 1.2 was based on the cost of rebranding and the cost of additional transportation. So that money would be less savings to our general fund, but it was figured in the savings that we would have for consolidation.
Yeah. Can I ask, in the past, in closed cases where the district has dealt with litigation, where has the money come from? Can you answer that question?
I don't know. I don't think we can, and I'm not sure that the district ever has had an active lawsuit against them, other than due process filing on cases for special education. So it's unusual for the district.
And just know, that's advice from our legal team too. That's not just Tony saying that either. So Tori, did you want to add anything?
I don't have any questions at the moment. No, thank you.
Thank you. Angie, did you have an additional question?
Well, I just clarifying that with the cost of rebranding, the only thing we're having to come up with is with the uniforms, if we order new uniforms, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and that's assuming that the district would pay for the total cost of the uniforms. There's also options whereby the individual teams would assist the district with the cost for uniforms. But that's assuming all sports teams got new uniforms.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
There's also...
Go ahead, Julie.
I'm not sure I understood Angie's question. Angie, were you saying the only cost for rebranding is buying new uniforms?
Yeah, and typically the sports teams fundraise for those. My kids have played sports for all the years that they've been in high school, and my husband's a coach, and the district has never paid for those.
Well, but there are more things that we have to spend money on to rebrand, like all the signs and.
Well, I think varsity sports is up with all of the temporary stuff, and Jenny said that the majority of the facility stuff wouldn't be really touched until it's time to, refinish the gym floor or, resurface the turfs or whatever. I don't envision us tearing apart anything. I think it's just adding things so that everybody feels included and welcome.
I think, Tony, didn't you mention that we were recommending that we actually purchase at least the first purchase of the uniforms, that would be a district cost because it's due to consolidation. And so we would buy the first round of uniforms, and then the teams would be responsible for buying the subsequent uniforms. Isn't that what you budgeted for?
Yeah, that's what Jeff had budgeted for in terms of the less savings for consolidation. But in conversations with the athletic directors, it would be, their suggestion was it would be reasonable to ask teams to at least provide some of the funding, certainly not all of the funding for that initiative.
Have you asked them about about using the current uniforms and how they would feel about that?
I have not. I did find out that we could, but I haven't actually approached them about doing that. So that is an option we could, look towards, something we could still investigate as an option.
And typically there's fundraising groups that specialize in adding this funding, to help out with either the kids that can't pay or, there's ways to fill in those gaps.
Definitely.
I have a question regarding the SCO request for a third interim budget. Do we have an idea of when they would be giving their findings on that?
And do you want to talk about that?
The third interim report's a little bit different. The board don't actually certify the report as positive or negative, and SCO isn't really required to opine on it. It is mostly normal. In normal times, it's intended to ensure that we have a good starting place in this year as the basis for next year's budget. This year, they really want it to be clear how we are reflecting the fiscal recovery plan in next year's budget. So it is a little bit different focus, but I wouldn't expect actually to hear a review from them until they look at our adopted budget. And we would typically hear from them about that in August. We submit it to them by the end of June, and they go through their review and give us any comments, which I assume will be, we expect to have a budget that the board can adopt, meaning that we will show that we can pay our bills next year. And budget adoption is really only about 2021-22. We do a multi-year, but approving the budget depends only on 21-22. So when we get to first interim, that they will look at the 2 subsequent years, and that's when they will really decide whether they think the fiscal recovery plan went far enough. If there are still things, I'm sure they'll be repeating their reminder that we have to stay on top of things and ensure we don't go back into deficit spending. So does that answer your question?
And do you have enough handle on I know you were helping Jeff to know if we still have those funds allocated for the rebranding or the transportation?
Yes, we do. Some of it, some of these new costs that we're looking at are really unknown. It's very difficult to estimate what those costs might be. So that is one of the things that I think calls everything into question. It's hard to know how much money do we have to work with. And meanwhile, we are waiting to hear the governor's May revision to his budget proposal next week. So there's another piece of information coming there as well.
Thank you. Tony, do you have a ballpark on the CVRA and the
last estimate I got was close to $60,000.
And then the recall election?
Wow. It depends on if there's anything else on the ballot. It could be 100,000. It could be more than 100,000. It really depends on how many measures are on the ballot for that special election.
Yeah. Thank you.
Jeannie Fernandez.
Yeah. So, we were talking about a timeline earlier, and with what Ann just said, that it could be August before we hear anything, it kind of seems to me like we can't make any decisions on rebranding until at least after August. I kind of got that right, maybe? I don't know.
Can we clarify on how?
So the money is, when we came up with the fiscal recovery plan and projected the savings from consolidation, we assumed that we would be doing the rebranding in terms of uniforms, and we assumed that we would be paying for increased transportation. Nothing has taken away from that. These new costs that we may incur largely are in future years. I mean, there will be some this year, but a good portion of it will be in next year. And sometimes what happens is when new things happen, you have to say, okay, well, we wanted to do X, and now we aren't going to do X, or we're going to scale X back, whether it be a textbook adoption, or there are things we have no flexibility on, and that's primarily people, because the March 15th time for issuing layoff notices is passed, and for classified, it's a 60-day notice. So staffing is pretty much not where we can save money. And of course, that's where most of our money is spent. But there are typically some things where we could say, we're going to put a freeze on professional development. AP teachers, you're just going to have to suck it up and make do with the training you got last year, as an example. I'm not saying that's what we would do, but if it turns out that these things are more costly and we can only cover them by making reductions, then we will again come up with things to reduce. As you all know, the easy reductions have been made, but there are almost always some smaller things that can be done that added up would be enough to get us through. Or they would mean, well, we don't look so good in 21, 22, so in 22, 23, we have to forego some things. I don't think they would mean that the district is going to need a state loan. That seems highly unlikely. So if the board feels that rebranding should proceed now, I don't think the cost should necessarily be the reason not to move forward. But know that I used to say this quite often, you can only spend $1 once. The state has found ways to spend $1 twice, but we can only count them once. So if we do that and we have these other costs, then we may have less for some other thing we would like to do.
Jeannie Fernandez.
So thank you, Anne. I appreciate that clarification because Angie brought up the myriad of things that are facing us, the CVRA, the recall. Of course, we know we have a lawsuit. And just kind of made the point that we don't have finite monies, obviously. And those are sort of out of the ordinary costs that we now are going to incur that we wouldn't normally incur. And when you add rebranding to that picture, then that kind of questions what other things are what are things that we're going to have to cut. And like she said, we already cut the easy stuff. Mm-hmm. Now it comes down to making some really hard decisions. And is that in the best interest of our students? Is that the best interest in our schools? Is that the best interest for the purpose of why our schools exist? And so it's a little kind of, unfortunately, those things sort of muddy the water for us at this point, I'm afraid to say.
I just worry that we promised these kids a new school and a fresh start if we were going to have to do this. And, I just not following through with what we told these kids we were going to do. Doesn't sit well with me at all. At the end of the day, these are kids, and I know that the majority of these issues are happening outside of the kids, or the kids are kind of being guided. And we do have to figure out how to help this community come together. I'm really torn here because these are kids, and we're in this situation where these kids, a group of kids, are being forced to go somewhere they don't want to go. And how do we create a culture of inclusion to make that feel good for everyone? Like, if we truly care about the kids and we're doing right, and Anne has just attested, that we can make this work. I don't know how we don't.
Julie, it looks like you wanted to make a comment. Julie.
Yeah, I mean, to answer Angie, the way I feel about it isn't that we're not doing what we said that we want to do. It's that we want to do it right, and we want to include them more in the process and give them whatever it is they need. We're assuming we know everything they need. I would like more input from the students. I want them to tell me what they need to feel comfortable and part of this new community we're creating. And that's what I'm feeling rushed about is I want to know what they're feeling, needing, thinking, and I want them to be a huge part of this process. I don't want it rushed, and I don't want it done halfway. So I don't feel like I'm saying, no, we're not doing it. I just want to say that when we do it, we're going to do it well, and do it right, and do it with their input, and give them what they actually need, whatever that is.
Lori?
I'd like to go along with both what Julie and Angie said, and I think honor and respect the students' wishes above and beyond. And to me, a uniform is a uniform, but it's the spirit of the people inside of it that really matters. And that we can, rebrand without all of the bells and whistles. We can do things, like adopt certain things that aren't necessarily costly and deal with the costly issues when we have an idea of how much money we've got available. But we can, say, okay, this is what you want in terms of mascot, colors, names, whatever it is, and then deal with the other pieces of it down the line. I hope that would be a possibility, and to get more input from the students themselves of what they really want and what they need.
I just think there's a fine line between the community and the students. And there's a lot of, a football game, everybody in town goes. It's a big event for the community. These things are, and I get both sides. I've toured both campuses. I've also had a tour of Laguna, but we're still figuring out when we're going to catalog that. And both tours just made me gut sick. I'm an Annalee alum, and it'd been a while since I'd spent a lot of time on that campus other than games, and just seeing I had friends that created, the tile mural. Like, I never envisioned that, we were tearing apart anything or damaging or destroying or taking away. I was just hopeful that we could find some sort of common ground in humanity through this hard process and figure out how to put our heads together to come together for the kids and for the community.
Any other comments from the board before we go to vote?
Well, we haven't heard from you, Kelly.
Well, I just have been letting the conversation, I've been facilitating the conversation. I think I agree with all the comments that have been made by my fellow board members. I think they've been very thoughtful and insightful. I think, we're in a hard spot of trying to navigate through this really awful decision that, is being made for the fiscal solvency of the district, and ultimately being able to, maintain AP programs and sports and what's best for all kids in our district, and trying to navigate the timeline for the rebranding is hard. I agree. I think that, trying to understand and get more feedback from the students and being able to get more of that input can put us on a better pathway forward and be something that the kids can hopefully work on together in this new space, which I think, might be helpful. There are concerns just around, as Anne said, all of these additional costs that we might need to take on and what those costs will look like. And just knowing the budget, it's if we give money one place, we all know that we have to take it from somewhere else. And we're getting to the point where we're having to make really awful decisions to keep our district afloat. And I don't want to take the risk of having to make another awful decision because we went down a path, and then because we have to pay costs for all, three, the redistricting, the recall, and the lawsuit, it doesn't feel good. And I don't think that's what will be best for kids. So I think both sides, from the financial space and then also from a space of that would be great to be able to get more student input. It seems like I'm in agreement with what my my fellow board members have said this evening.
Can we add a timeline to the motion, or how does that work?
We can. You would have to, we have a motion and a second on the table, so you could ask Julie for a friendly amendment to amend her motion to put a timeline in that. She can choose to accept that or not. If she accepts it, then we would vote on that new motion. If she does not accept it, and then the second person that has to second it has to accept it. If it does not, then we would vote on the current motion. And then if it passes or doesn't, we would either move forward or we'd bring it back to the table for another motion. So that's kind of the process of where we're at. Julie, do you want to comment?
Well, I really like to get to the whys of things. And I think, and you can tell me totally if I'm wrong, Angie, but you're feeling there needs to be a timeline because you're concerned it won't happen.
Correct.
And the way I feel is that we are here to do what's best for the kids and the district. And if the kids for El Molino need to have rebranding in order to feel part of this community, and we find that to be true, I think all of us will want to do that. My problem with the timeline is I just don't know when we will know that it would be the fiscally responsible thing to do. And I don't know when we'll get enough input from the kids to know if that's what they want to do and need to do and how to do it and all that. That's why I am concerned about a timeline.
What if there's a contingency that like either the lawsuit's resolved or some of these other, maybe these things that are added cost are become resolved? I don't know. I'm just thinking outside the box.
I mean, you could do an open-ended.
I feel like there's just so many chess pieces that need to be in place before we can do an adequate job of rebranding and have it be meaningful for the kids.
I have a suggestion.
I don't want to do something just to do it. I want to do it and have it be meaningful.
So Jeannie,
I have a suggestion.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeannie.
My suggestion is, if you might be amenable, Julie, that we add to the motion that we will revisit this in X amount of months and see where we do sit. And maybe somebody's got an idea of how many months we've actually done that before, where we said we're going to put this on the agenda and revisit this, every month or every 2 months or whatever. But maybe we can, if it makes people a little more comfortable to know that we are serious about moving forward when there is at the right time, that we can add a X amount of months that we will revisit this.
I'm absolutely fine with that.
So
I'm totally fine with that.
So it sounds like Julie would accept that. And then the second, Lori, you made the second, right? Or no, Jeannie?
I did.
Jeannie, would you?
How many months do we
want how many months do we want to say? Do we want to say 3 months? Do we want to say, because
we're kind of out of months. I'm just a little perplexed on the fact that we voted unanimously that this was the best thing to do. And now, I get all the variables.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because but some of these things unfortunately are kind of been out of our control, or actually many of these. And I'm going to recommend we say 3 months, and we'll revisit it in 3 months. Would Julie, you be okay to add that to your? Not that we have to make a decision in 3 months. We're just going to revisit it.
So would you accept that, Julie?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
Yes.
I will. Yes. I will then second. I will amend my second to agree to adding a 3-month timeline on that.
And then Angie, you wanted to make a comment?
No, I'm just trying to keep my child quiet over here.
Okay.
I think Jeannie Broom wanted to say something.
Okay. Jeannie?
I just kind of disagree with the notion that these costs were like unexpected, because I think if we were reading, and I've sat in these meetings, so I as well as you all have heard, the community. So I just think that it would have been nice if maybe that would have been brought up when we talked about rebranding initially, because I could have predicted all these costs. I think a lot of people could too. So it's just unfortunate that there wasn't that foresight in that decision making, because now it does feel like people are being slighted. So I think at the very least, you got to put some kind of timeline on it, because it just feels very.
I think 3 months is too long. The school, everybody will be back, 3 months is just before school starts. I mean, at that point, it'd be, we could, I guess, then it's for the following year.
Well, I know
we don't meet in
is 4 months.
I have a suggestion. So could we bring it up in each of our regular board meetings? So it would be like a monthly update on where the budget is. Where are we with the budget? Is budget looking any better? Is there a way we could do it? So like we could at our next meeting where there's going to be an update. I think there's budget updates. There's definitely one on the 26th. So we could, each time the budget is there, we could have the conversation about, is there a leeway? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I want to have some of these outside factors been concluded. I mean, because that's really the other thing that we have pushing on us. And I guess I was hopeful that, I know this is awful. And I guess I was, hopeful that we would be in a different space on how we might come and approach this transition. And
So maybe Julie can amend her motion to say, and that we will revisit this.
The only thing I can say is my point wasn't only financial. My point was I want to make it done in a meaningful way that's done well. And I don't think if we decide, we can financially do it next month, it will help my biggest concern, which is to rebrand in a meaningful way where the kids participate in it and it's done completely and not halfway.
Yeah.
Because
go ahead.
No, that's okay. Go ahead, Angie.
Sorry, I've got a dog with a chew toy. I think the problem with that is that next year is we're bringing together the kids that have spent the most time at each campuses. So the detriment, above and beyond the ripple effects to our entire communities about all of this, these are kids coming into their senior year and, being forced to figure out how to come together. There's already been banter on social media about school pride and stuff like that. And I'm just an advocate for finding common ground and everybody feeling included in this situation and people not feeling slighted. I think that's a huge equity issue in this whole thing.
It's like Anne has a comment.
So the May revise comes out next week. The chances that I will know enough about it to give you budget news by the 12th it's very unlikely. By the 26th, I may know a little more. And the students the committee was already slated to present where they are. So maybe you could hear where they are, talk with them about, do they think they got enough input? Do they think it would be beneficial to get more input from students, community? I mean, part of it will be how many people participate in their next survey. And then you could decide and give direction for how to move forward if you want there to be more work done during the summer. And then really the next time we'll know we'll know more about the budget in June when you get your preliminary budget presentation on the 9th and then adopt the budget on the 23rd. And then, we begin closing the books. So then you'd really know more in September, knowing that you're not going to know about these other costs. We can come up with estimates, but we're not really going to know what they are until they play their course. But at least you would know, well, okay, we found some money through closing the books, or we got some money in the May revision that were not part of our original plans. And so we can feel confident doing X. Maybe you don't do the whole thing. Maybe you do part of it. Maybe you do varsity uniforms first and, the lower level teams get done in the second year. Right? And there's ways to phase things to try and spread costs out if that turns out to be necessary. That's just a thought.
Thank you, Anne.
I'm not sure, I appreciate that, the financial picture. I'm not sure that it answers Julie's concern about the kids being really involved, but I like the idea of having the kids do their presentation on the 26th as planned, so that we can ask those questions.
I mean, they did work. I mean, we should acknowledge, I mean, even if we build off of that work, we should acknowledge the work that they did.
I agree.
And if we want to go out again, I mean, and do more, then we could do that. I mean, I still think the other piece of this puzzle is just some of these outside factors that, as Ann said, I mean, even in the early fall, we still might not know. I mean, we'd have more clarity on a couple of them, but we might not know all of them.
It sounds like from school budgeting that there's always things that come up. I know my mother is a retired CBO, and this is kind of the nature of the beast. It sounds like she is on board to figure out how we can make it work. If this is something we want to do to honor the kids and, you know, go forward. I do like the idea, Julie, of I heard loud and clear the community buy-in, and, you know, I'm kind of on the fence for that reason, because I think that that is a very important piece of this. And I don't know, I think the kids should be very much involved, but I think the community, because this has a ripple effect to, you know, everyone in that aspect, and the passion behind that has been severely demonstrated on both sides.
Yeah.
So I think it is a good
I just feel like
present.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Kelly. Go ahead.
No, I'm just itching my head. You can go.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know. It's always been my experience that community will be happy if their kids are happy, and the kids will be happy if they have buy-in and can participate in the program of rebranding. I think that giving them a voice can only be a good thing. And I think they need more of a voice of telling us what they need and what they want. And then I think the community will be happy because their kids will be happy. I hope.
The thing that's part of this too is the pulling the kids. I think you had brought that up, Julie.
Yes, I think Julie and Jeannie.
I'm sorry, what? What was that?
Doing more surveys and pulling the kids and finding out more. I think Julie and Jeannie both said that.
So, you know, Julie, I'm just trying to follow our Robert's Rules of Orders. So it sounds like maybe you don't need or want to amend your motion, and then we can just request, as a matter of our board practice, that Tony provide an update monthly on where we're at.
As part of budget, and then as part of your updates. I mean, there's the both pieces. There's the budget, and then there's the engagement piece. So we don't want to lose either of those, is what I'm hearing.
And I kind of like that, because
then we can always.
Go ahead.
Lori. Was that you, Lori?
That was Julie.
Julie. Okay. Sorry. I couldn't tell who was talking.
I said then, you know, when we are ready to talk about rebranding, we could just request it be on the agenda. Is that the way it would work?
Yep.
Well, it'd be a regular update, and then yes, we would have to agendize it to take action on changing the timeline again.
What do we do about all the work the kids have done thus far? And
well, I think we're saying we still want to hear that presentation on the 26th.
Yeah.
I think we still want to get that information and hear it and include that in the next steps of the process, because we're not saying we're stopping. We're just saying we're pausing.
Okay. Pausing is stopping, right?
So Julie, will you?
I'm not saying we're terminating it. We're not like ending it. We're still engaging in the process. We just aren't doing it at the same timeline we were.
Julie, can you then just make a statement for the record that you would like to just retain your original motion?
Okay, I'd like to retain my original motion.
Okay, and I will retain my second. I just want to keep it straight so that we don't get the record confused. Good discussion, you guys.
Are we ready to vote?
What is the original motion? To just pause rebranding?
Postpone rebranding.
Yes.
Was there more to that?
Karen can probably read it.
Yeah. Can you read what we?
Yes, it's Trustee Ayala moved to postpone the rebranding until we have a better understanding of the financial situation. And Trustee Fernandez seconded the motion.
Okay.
It was amended to include a 3-month timeline. So
But
are you going to amend it back?
Yeah, we're amending it back. Julie already stated that.
Julie just said she retained her original motion.
So then we're going to just wait till the May 26th meeting and Ann will just be giving a monthly budget update, or Tony, you will be?
Yes, we'll give you're actually on the 26th going to get probably an update on the May revise, along with a lot of other information on the budget at that time.
And then also we can hear from the students. I think that's, I think we need to honor them. Absolutely. And I hope that you, Tony, and maybe we can on the 26th, can, at least for me, I can't speak for the entire board, but reiterate that we really appreciate the work that they've done, and in no way do we discount anything that they've been doing.
All right, are we ready to vote? Call the question. Are we there? Everyone? Any other comments? All right, Julie.
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Angie.
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez.
Aye. Aye.
Kelly. Aye. Satori.
Aye.
Jeannie Broom.
No.
All right. And with that, I think that was our only agenda item this evening. So I will move us to adjournment. Thank you all. And
thank you guys for the great discussion. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I'm ending the meeting.